Hey everybody, it's me, it's Dan from Rocksmith, and I'm here happy to welcome our special guest for today's interview. It's Brendon Small, that you know from Metalocalypse and Home Movies and Dethklok, and of course this week's DLC, Dethklok, finally in Rocksmith 2014 after a ceaseless, tireless campaign from big fans who have been harassing us. Why don't you have Dethklok? And now all of those people are probably looking at their sore fingers and going, why did you put Dethklok in the game? So hi and welcome, and thanks for taking the time to talk to us today, because this is super awesome.
Well, I'm happy to be here. I'm a big fan of Rocksmith, and I'm a big fan of people getting excited about guitars. So for me, this is the coolest thing in the world. And yes, I remember when we talked maybe like a year ago. Rocksmith and I were talking, and I was endorsing them because I think it's such a cool product. And I knew that I said, get ready, because people are going to start asking for a lot of Dethklok stuff, because people need to know and they need to see examples, and it's fun to be able to play along in the Rocksmith style. It's not just like reading a tablature book or something like that.
Right.
You're actually you're put on the spot to really kind of deliver, which is really cool. Yeah.
We also know that, a lot of players can't just leap in at expert level. And I'm sorry, a lot of Dethklok music is expert level music. So it's nice to have the dynamic difficulty that builds you up a little bit at a time. But keeping that in mind, we have a lot of people that turn to Rocksmith because nothing else worked for them, and we're really happy to embrace them, right? But how do you remember when you started to play guitar? How old were you? What were the circumstances? And God forbid, do you remember the first instrument that you had?
Well, I do remember all that stuff very much, and I think everybody that stuck with it kind of remembers where they were. And I knew I loved guitar from when I was a really little kid, and I knew I had to have one. I just knew that I was drawn towards it. I just thought they looked cool. I just wanted to be around a guitar, particularly the electric guitar. And I was lucky enough to have a buddy up the street when I was in junior high, and his name's Renzo, and he's still my good friend. And he and I went to music school. We kept this guitar friendship alive since we were both 14-year-olds. But he's the one. He was the cool friend that I had that showed me how to play a couple of riffs in one day. That made me think that, hey, I can play music, And it was pretty simple stuff. One of them was Iron Man, and the other one was a blues shuffle, just a simple blues shuffle. And by the end of the day, I wasn't playing them wonderfully, but I had that power chord shape, in my hands. And once I figured that that's this kind of parallel movement thing, I can do this, then I felt like, I can be an actual guitar player. So that's what it was, and I do remember my first guitar. It was a Gibson Epiphone Spotlight, which is a double cutaway, kind of like a double cutaway Les Paul thing, and it was really cool. And I traded it for a way worse guitar, like we all do. Started with great gear, and we traded for crappier gear, and then I realized, like 20 years of guitar playing in, that what you really need is a decent guitar and a decent amp, and everything else. These guys here, your hands faults.
I have not been able to replace those yet, but I have this this same exact problem. I keep going, oh, this other guitar, that's going to be exactly what I need. And then I hear somebody like Eddie Van Halen always says, like, I can play through a Les Paul, I can play through a Strat, doesn't matter. They all sound like me because it's coming from my hands.
Exactly. There's that. But you know what? As you can see this is just my writing office where I write, comedy and stuff. But I've got a lot of guitars on the walls. I've got an old prototype of my Gibson Thunder Horse over there, but I have a Thunder Horse on the other side, and then I have a Kramer that I painted, and 335s, Les Pauls, SGs, and I got this thing. Speaking of cool guitars, I got this, which is the prototype, the one and only prototype of the Gibson Snow Horse, which is pretty great. This may be my favorite.
So this is mixing the Snow Falcon with the Thunder Horse, basically?
That's right, yeah. And this is well, that was my first lesson was Iron Man, and it really was just getting your fingers on a power chord. It was just something simple. I was playing it much worse. I was playing it more like this. And mixing it up, but in my mind, I could hear that it was happening.
Sure.
But I got plenty of tips for guitarists that are starting out. A lot of people say, you got to start out. First of all, there's an old thing that I think parents started because they didn't want to hear loud guitars in their houses, where they wanted you to start out on an acoustic guitar. That is a total lie. You don't have to start out on, you know, as we call them, grandpa's guitars and on Metalocalypse, you can start out with an electric, and you don't have to have high action. You don't have to prove that your fingers have to go through treachery in order to play this instrument. You can start out with something with, you know, reasonably low action, which is the string height, you know, the height of the string to the fretboard, and make it actually comfortable. And you know, as you were saying, people's hands may be hurting from playing this stuff, but when I'm playing at my best, when I'm on tour with Dethklok and all that stuff, I'm playing really lightly on my left hand, like I just playing like really simple, like light stuff here, and I'm holding the pick, but you can probably reach up and grab it out of my finger. I'm playing lightly. And I've noticed a lot of my favorite guitarists play pretty lightly too. So just remember that when you're starting out. You don't have to white knuckle the guitar, but you'll start out that way anyway. And then send messages to your body constantly saying, hey dude, relax. You'll play a lot longer if you can just relax.
Even in Rocksmith, we've noticed that people say, I'm playing the note, I know I'm playing the note, I'm playing it really hard, and the game is saying that I'm playing the fret above that. And what we're saying is, play softer. Don't clamp down like a vice grip, because the game is actually, you know, you're causing that note to go sharp. And then when they loosen up, they go, oh, that was it. And that's something it's kind of hard for us to convey. You know, there's only so much the software can do.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. You know, when you really sit down and play some blues, it's nice to dig in and bend a note and all that stuff. But you know, you will kind of like grab a. You can bend it. You can bend a chord out of tune by, you know, white knuckling the guitar, but you don't need to do it. You can just. One thing I would say to anybody, adults or kids or anyone who's getting excited about guitar, when you do buy a guitar, go and get it professionally set up. And as you play it, you're going to start realizing that you like certain things a certain way. You may like you may like the guitars to strings to actually. You may want them to fret out just a little, like to buzz a little bit, because sometimes some cool blues guys get a buzzy, cool sound. Sometimes some people like really high action. I have lots of different friends you know, professional guitarists, and I said, can I just check out your action and see how you're playing? And everyone likes it just a little differently, you know. Ingve Malmsteen likes high action, but really light gauge strings. I like, when I'm playing a standard tuned guitar, I like tens, and I like pretty low action. And this is a cool thing if you can check this out. The new Gibsons have this thing called an adjustable zero fret.
Yeah.
And it's you can adjust the action from here with an Allen wrench. And that's something that will just make your guitar play better, because it doesn't have to be a pain in the neck to play your instrument. It should just be fun, and you should just be drawn to the instrument and just do it for excitement and your own personal. If I never had Metalocalypse or Dethklok, I'd be playing guitar as much as I'm playing it.
Right.
You know, which is a lot. I wake up and I play guitar every single morning. You know.
So, as somebody who now has multiple signature models, I assume the Snow Falcon is being, or the Snow Horse is being considered for production at this point.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep in. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
We'll have some cool announcements soon. I think sooner than later, about a bunch of guitar stuff. But yeah, this was designed, and then this was basically I had a show last fall where Dethklok was headlining at Tenacious D's big festival called Festival Supreme, and it was really fun. And I used that concert as incentive to get the guys at Gibson USA to finish this prototype, because I said, hey, if I put this out there, it's going to get a lot of people excited about this guitar, which it has done. And people are asking me about this guitar every single day, and it really is cool. And I think every time I do another thing, I do a couple little tiny things. Every time I make a new guitar, I do a couple little tiny things that make it different and cooler and more playable and have more sounds available to it. So, yeah.
I have to ask, you grow up playing Epiphone and Gibson instruments. You love guitar.
Yeah.
At some point, Gibson says, let's make a signature model based on you and your creations. Did you approach them? Did they approach you? And what is that like to suddenly go, oh my God, I'm living the dream? You know, like, how did that relationship happen?
It started out. It started out with the inception of Metalocalypse. Metalocalypse was a show where I thought, okay, if I'm a metalhead and I see that someone has made a show, and if I'm a musician and I see someone's made a show about music and metal, I'm probably gonna, I got to make sure that everything's authentic. I wanted these guys, like the characters in the show, to be of human proportion, so that they could hold a guitar. And I didn't want to do like The Simpsons where they got 4 fingers. I wanted to make 4 fingers and a thumb, and I wanted to make sure they could grab, the guitar and be able to play it. And I wanted them to play real guitars because I love, first of all, this is the coolest shaped guitar in the world. Look at that thing.
No argument.
It's so cool. And Flying V's are really cool, and Les Pauls are really cool, and SGs are really cool. But I thought, I don't want to redesign a guitar because that would just be, everything's based off of a Gibson or a Strat anyway, and I would rather use something that's already really cool and that I love anyway. So I called Gibson. I said, listen, I think I just wrote them a blind letter. I said, I have a TV show. Would you like to work with me? And they said, well, you have a TV show. That's a conversation starter. And I talked to my contact there, and he said, we get it. We understand what this is. We understand what Adult Swim is, and we think it's cool. And I was like, good. And that's, the whole partnership started there. And then I started somewhere in, I think, the 3rd season, I started, I said, you know what, I want to design a guitar that's kind of just, it's like a kind of an off-the-rack Explorer, but I want to do like a Silverburst kind of thing, because I was excited about this earlier 80s Explorer that you can't get anymore, which was like a tobacco burst, and I saw a black and white photo of a tobacco burst, and I thought it looked like a Silverburst. So I said, can we do that? Can we call it the Thunder Horse, which is based off of the song? I named it after a song that's actually in the Rocksmith Dethklok pack. And I thought that's such a cool name for, I'm just renaming a guitar, and I'm just doing the same, I'm using the same guitar, I'm just painting it differently. And I love this guitar, and I swapped out a couple pickups, and it was that simple. And yes, it was a dream come true. It was the coolest thing in the world. And then to follow that with the Snow Falcon, which is, you can't even get that anymore. But again, stay tuned, because we may have a nice announcement from some friends soon. Yeah, so it's the coolest thing in the world to go back and forth with the builders in Nashville and talk about, like, hey, what if we did X, Y, or Z? Can we try that out? And and I started experimenting. I started doing, this is what I do with my guitars. I take my guitar like this, and see the back of it?
Oh, yeah.
The neck, just with sandpaper. And I also noticed that from one guitar to the next, my main Thunder Horse that I play doesn't have a very glossy coat on it, but I like the look of the glossiness. But I keep going back to the one with the satin finish. And I asked the builder, I said, why do I keep going back to the satin finish? And he said, it's because the wood can breathe, and you can hear more of the wood in your fingertips and all that stuff, and it's more organic. And I kept going back to more organic, and now this prototype has very little paint, just one coat on it, and then I sanded the neck, and it feels better, it sounds better, it plays better, and it sounds like something you can get, like country guitar kind of sounds out of it, you can get blues kind of stuff, and you can get scary death metal at the same time, which is, I think, what we're all here for, right?
Excellent.
Yeah.
So I guess the last question is, what's next? Because I know we're going to have, whatever's going to happen with your signature guitars is going to happen.
Yes.
But what's next for you? What's next for Dethklok? Do you have anything that you can talk about that's on the horizon?
I have a lot of stuff on the horizon. Very little I can talk about, but I can just say, I know it's always
it's understandable.
That's most of my interviews is me saying, I can't release a lot of information right now, but I do have a final vision for for Metalocalypse, and I have a lot of music that's going to be coming out. And so what I've been doing is I've been writing tons of music that's in the style of this music that tons of people have come to know and learn and enjoy. And I've got some really cool stuff on the horizon. And then I also, it's funny because I have I'm not just a musician, I also, I'm a TV show runner, and I do stand-up comedy. So I'm doing all these things at once, and it's really fun to be able to do all of it at the same time, and to kind of have this, you never get bored, you just never, that's the lifestyle I want, is where I can play guitar for a living, and then go and do stand-up, which is what I'm doing tonight, and then go and, like, for example, this summer I'm going to go and teach heavy metal to 11 to 17-year-olds in Woodstock. Me and Scott Ian from Anthrax are going to go and do this. So if you check out my Twitter feed, there's all the information for that. If you want actual real guitar lessons and play with the band and all kinds of stuff like that, I'm doing all that this summer too, which is a fun way to kind of to find me when I was 14 and to
exactly
correct a couple mistakes here and there before they get too bad.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time, man. Really super appreciate it. Again, we wish everybody else good luck playing Dethklok. Hopefully when you get to play it in the game, you'll go, yeah, they got it right. That's our biggest fear, is that we don't get it right.
Well, I've had a couple conversations with the guys, and it sounds like they're all on the right track. So I'm excited to play it. And kids, if you're watching, kids or grown men or grown women, whatever it is, it's fun to learn. You know what? A lot of people say don't try to do anything that's outside of your your wheelhouse. Whatever you want to do, like. But I say do try that stuff, and that's how I started. I tried stuff that was like really hard, and my fingers one day they kind of just got it. They all snapped too. If you practice long enough, if you put the hours in when you're practicing and you pay attention for a solid 15 minutes, then you're going to get all this stuff. And I think you're going to be excited, and you're going to, a new part of your life is going to open up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.